ਇਹ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਇੱਕ ਐਕਸਪੈਰੀਮੈਂਟਲ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਹਿ ਲਈਏ। ਇਹ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੋਏਗਾ, ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੋਏਗਾ। ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸਟੂਡੀਓ ਦਾ ਬੜਾ ਚਾਅ ਸੀ ਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਕੋਈ ਗੈਸਟ ਲੈ ਕੇ ਆਵਾਂ, ਬਟ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਕੋਈ ਵਰਦੀ ਕੈਂਡੀਡੇਟ ਨਹੀਂ ਲੱਭਿਆ। ਅਤੇ ਇਹ ਟੇਲਰ ਮੇਰਾ ਬੈਸਟ ਫਰੈਂਡ ਕਹਿ ਲਈਏ। ਅਤੇ ਸਾਡੇ ਬੜੇ ਜੋ ਵਾਰਤਾਲਾਪ ਹੁੰਦੀ ਹੈ ਉਹਦੇ ਵਿੱਚੋਂ ਬੜੇ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਆਈਡੀਆਜ਼ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਆਏ, ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਮੈਂ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਲਿਆਂਦਾ। ਅਤੇ ਇਹਦਾ ਕਿਤੇ ਨਾ ਕਿਤੇ ਹੱਥ ਰਹਿੰਦਾ ਕੋਈ ਵੀ ਇੰਸਪੀਰੇਸ਼ਨ ਜਦੋਂ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਮਿਲਦੀ ਹੈ। ਅਤੇ ਅਨਫੋਰਚੂਨੇਟਲੀ ਇਹ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਬੋਲਦਾ, ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਹੀ ਬੋਲਦਾ। ਅਤੇ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਸਟੂਡੀਓ ਦਾ ਚਾਅ ਸੀ, ਇੱਕ ਗੈਸਟ ਲਿਆਉਣ ਦਾ ਚਾਅ ਸੀ, ਅਤੇ ਇਹਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਚਾਅ ਆਇਆ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਹਨੇ ਸਟੂਡੀਓ ਦੇਖਿਆ। ਅਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਇੱਕ ਐਕਸਪੈਰੀਮੈਂਟ ਕਰਨ ਲੱਗੇ ਅਤੇ ਗੱਲ ਕਰਦੇ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ ਚਲੋ ਆਪਾਂ ਰਿਕਾਰਡਿੰਗ ਦਾ ਬਟਨ ਦੱਬ ਹੀ ਦਿੰਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਅਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਰਿਕਾਰਡ ਦਾ ਬਟਨ ਦੱਬਿਆ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਸਾਡਾ ਹਜੇ ਚੈਨਲ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ। ਅਤੇ ਕਾਕਾ ਬੱਲੀ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਹੀ ਇੱਕ ਪਲੈਟਫਾਰਮ ਹੈ ਜਿਹਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਅਸੀਂ ਅਪਲੋਡ ਕਰ ਸਕਦੇ ਹਾਂ। ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮੈਂ ਸੋਚਦਾ ਪਿਆ ਵਾਂ, ਅਗਰ ਮੈਨੂੰ 3 ਭਾਸ਼ਾਵਾਂ ਆਉਂਦੀਆਂ ਨੇ ਅਤੇ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਾ ਮੈਂ 3 ਭਾਸ਼ਾਵਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ, ਭਾਵੇਂ ਮੈਂ 100% ਉਹ 3 ਭਾਸ਼ਾਵਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਆ, ਬਟ ਫਿਰ ਵੀ ਅਗਰ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਭਾਸ਼ਾਵਾਂ ਆਉਂਦੀਆਂ ਤਾਂ ਕਿਉਂ ਨਾ ਮੈਂ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਸਾਰੀਆਂ ਲੈਂਗੁਏਜਸ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੱਕ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰਾਂ। ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਬੀਨ ਮੇਰੀ ਮਦਰ ਟੰਗ, ਉਹ ਸਭ ਤੋਂ ਪਹਿਲਾ ਚੈਨਲ ਸੀ। ਹਿੰਦੀ ਇਹਦਾ ਬਹੁਤ ਵਾਰੀ ਮੈਂ ਟਰਾਈ ਕੀਤਾ, ਬਟ ਟਾਈਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਮਿਲਦਾ ਨਾ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਇੰਨਾ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਟਾਈਮ ਲੱਗ ਜਾਂਦਾ। ਅਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਹਿੰਦੀ ਦਾ ਬਣਾਇਆ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਹੋਇਆ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ, ਬਟ ਬੇਅਰਲੀ ਮੈਂ ਉੱਤੇ ਅਪਲੋਡ ਕਰਦਾ ਵਾਂ। ਅਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਕਦੀ ਵੀ ਉਹਨੂੰ ਪ੍ਰਮੋਟ ਵੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਕੀਤਾ, ਬਟ ਮੈਂ ਮੈਨਸ਼ਨ ਕਰਦਾ ਆਲਮੋਸਟ ਦੇਸੀ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ, ਉਹ ਹਿੰਦੀ ਦਾ ਹੋਏਗਾ। ਅਤੇ ਹੁਣ ਉਹ ਚੈਨਲ 'ਤੇ ਇਹ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਵੀ ਪਾਵਾਂਗਾ, ਇਹ ਚੈਨਲ 'ਤੇ ਮੈਂ ਵੀਡੀਓ ਪਾਵਾਂਗਾ। ਅਤੇ ਸੌਰੀ ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਹੈ। ਅਤੇ ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਆਪਣੀ ਪਹੁੰਚ ਵੱਧਦੀ ਜਾਏਗੀ, ਆਪਾਂ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਵੱਲ ਵੀ ਨਿਕਲਾਂਗੇ, ਫਿਰ ਇੰਡੀਆ ਤੋਂ ਇੰਟਰਨੈਸ਼ਨਲ ਲੈਵਲ 'ਤੇ ਵੀ ਨਿਕਲਾਂਗੇ, ਅਤੇ ਵੱਖਰੀਆਂ ਭਾਸ਼ਾਵਾਂ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਆਪਾਂ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਕਰਨ ਦੀ ਕੋਸ਼ਿਸ਼ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਬਟ ਜਦੋਂ ਇਨਫ ਟਾਈਮ ਹੋਏਗਾ, ਅਤੇ ਹਜੇ ਸੋਲਲੀ ਫੋਕਸ ਮੇਰਾ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਹੀ ਹੈ। ਜਿੱਦਾਂ ਮੈਂ ਕਿਹਾ, ਇਹ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਮੈਂ 2 ਚੈਨਲਾਂ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਲਾਂਚ ਕਰਾਂਗਾ, ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਵਾਲੇ ਚੈਨਲ 'ਤੇ ਓਬਵੀਅਸਲੀ, ਅਤੇ ਹਿੰਦੀ ਵਾਲੇ ਚੈਨਲ 'ਤੇ, ਜਾਂ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਮਿਕਸਡ ਭਾਸ਼ਾ ਵਾਲਾ ਚੈਨਲ ਹੈ ਉੱਤੇ ਵੀ। ਪਹਿਲੋਂ ਵੀ 1-2 ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਹੋਏ ਨੇ ਜੋ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਦੇ ਵਿੱਚ ਨਹੀਂ ਸੀ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਹੋਰ ਕੋਈ ਚੈਨਲ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ, ਇਸ ਲਈ ਮੈਨੂੰ ਇਸੇ ਪਲੈਟਫਾਰਮ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਲਾਂਚ ਕਰਨਾ ਪਿਆ। ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਮੇਰੇ ਬੜੇ ਫਰੈਂਡਸ ਨੇ ਜਿਨ੍ਹਾਂ ਕੋਲ ਬਹੁਤ ਜ਼ਿਆਦਾ ਆਈਡੀਆਜ਼ ਨੇ, ਬਟ ਉਹ ਪੰਜਾਬੀ ਨਹੀਂ ਨੇ, ਉਹ ਜਾਂ ਤਾਂ ਹਿੰਦੀ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਨੇ ਜਾਂ ਉਹ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਬੋਲਦੇ ਨੇ। ਅਤੇ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਵਾਸਤੇ ਜਿਹੜਾ ਆਲਮੋਸਟ ਦੇਸੀ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਹੈ ਉਹ ਚੈਨਲ ਦੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਆਪਾਂ ਕਰਾਂਗੇ। ਬਟ ਹਾਂ, ਚੈੱਕਆਊਟ ਜ਼ਰੂਰ ਕਰਿਓ, ਅਤੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਵੀ ਜਾ ਕੇ ਸਬਸਕ੍ਰਾਈਬ ਕਰਿਓ। ਹੌਲੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਉਹ ਚੈਨਲ ਨੂੰ ਵੀ ਆਪਾਂ ਪਿਕਅਪ ਕਰੀਏ ਅਤੇ ਉੱਤੇ ਵੀ ਅਪਲੋਡ ਕਰਨਾ ਸ਼ੁਰੂ ਕਰੀਏ। ਬਟ ਹਾਂ, ਕਿਉਂਕਿ ਹੁਣ ਇੱਕ ਤਗੜਾ ਐਸਟੈਬਲਿਸ਼ਡ ਪਲੈਟਫਾਰਮ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੈ, ਅਤੇ ਇਹ ਅੰਗਰੇਜ਼ੀ ਦਾ ਪੋਡਕਾਸਟ ਮੈਂ ਇੱਥੇ ਅਪਲੋਡ ਕਰ ਰਿਹਾ। ਹੋਪਫੁਲੀ ਤੁਸੀਂ ਇੰਜੋਏ ਕਰੋ। Thank you. Medieval. I struggle to find some history podcasts because there are not many. And I always get fascinated by history anyway, not just podcasts or anything. Every time I look back, there were some hardcore people, and sometimes back in India, there's some things happening. You know how all these dictators rise and they see this power vacuum and they fill in that power vacuum, and dictatorship is there all of a sudden and people don't even realize. So I think it's really important for me. Sometimes I get so fixated on Hitler, and even Adam told me off many times, like, you love Hitler. I was like, I don't love the idea of Hitler. It just, how that guy rose in power. And something is happening in my community now in Punjab, state of Punjab, that this really radical guy, religious guy, he's rising up to power. And I always in my podcast recommend people just go back in history and see how these guys come in power. You're still not learning from it.
Can you give me like a summary of what that is? Like what's going on there? I have no idea.
So in 1947,
That was like World War. That was like after World War II?
After. So 45, the World War II ended.
So 2 years after World War II.
So British got bankrupt.
Oh, yeah.
So they did not have resources to manage India. They're like, okay, we can't handle India now. We can't control India now. We used all their resources and we don't even have enough people. So, okay, leave India. And there were a lot of aggression towards them, Britishers. And we Indians were saying, okay, just leave the country now. Like, we want to manage or whatever. Blah, blah, blah happened. So they decided that we're going to leave India in 1947. But now the power struggle happened within India. So power goes to who? So rich Indians were like, okay, the majority of them were Hindus anyway. So it was going to become a Hindu nation, which it is. 85% of us are Hindus. Now Muslims are like, you know what? If Hindus got all the power, they're going to probably rank us or whatever. They were like, okay, we need our own nation. So Pakistan happened. So Sikhs, which are just 2%. So at that point of time, we were playing with the idea, okay, if they have Pakistan, should we have Khalistan, which is, the word is Khalsa, we use in Sikhism, that we should have our own Khalistan. So we were playing with the idea. So at that point of time, Nehru, who was the Prime Minister of India, so he was like, you know what, we'll give you all the rights and whatever, Sikhs, so don't have your own nation. So we agreed, Sikhs agreed. So that movement of going back and forth, it comes like 1984 was a really bad year for us, for Sikhs, because that movement started again, we need our own nation. And that thing is happening again now, where a religious guy says, you know what, it's enough for us. Like, Sikhs are not getting justice, we don't have all the rights, and so we need our own nation. So every time this discussion happens, so you can see this all over the world anyway. So when a guy just picks up a gun and says, you know what, we need our own nation, the problem happens. So this problem is happening right now in India, that Khalistan movement, that we need our own nation.
So you want to break away, well, not you, but like your area wants to break away to become its own country.
Yeah,
per se.
from India. And I, as a let's say, I am involved in, like, I learn about how the global market is working and how the economy is working, and how I also see the patterns from history, how these things go down the line, you know. So let's say Punjab or Sikh, Punjabi Sikhs, and if they get their Khalistan, the area is really small. And then I also see how India is going to be in few years. Like, I'm a big proponent, and I'm a nationalist, I can say. I'm proud of my country, you know. So even though I'm here, but I know in 2040 or 2050, India is becoming a superpower, most likely. So our GDP, I think this year was 6% high or something, 0.6%. And it was better than last year.
6%, I think, is like massive growth.
Yeah, I think 0.6.
Oh, 0.6.
0.6, I want to say.
Yeah.
So usually majority of the GDPs, they go down. All the countries, they go 0.6 down or 0.7 down or whatever. I'm not a mathematician or economist, but I do know that India's GDP has risen a bit. And I also see how India has managed itself to be self-sustained. Like, we do not get involved in all of the conflicts, and we are just, you know, we don't comment on Ukraine or Russia or anything. We just stay away.
Smart.
And we do not rely much on export or import. We just self-sustained. And if you see the conflict between US and China now, a lot of things are happening in the background. People don't realize. And that's why the inflation is here. That's why the bad market. That's why the banks are crashing. India somehow are just excluded from everything. And now we have probably the biggest labor market. And I do feel India is going to be the superpower. If Sikhs, they separate, it's going to be a buffer nation, I feel like.
And you're going to miss out on that growth. Like, you're kind of excluding yourself as things are kind of about to ramp up.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes I get conflicted when people ask me, oh, have you applied for the New Zealand passport? I am on the fence. I'm like, should I? Because I do know probably in 10, 20 years down the line, I'm thinking, should I go back to or move back to India? You know, so that's my plan. So this movement, Khalistan movement, what I was talking about, that's why I'm not a big proponent of it. Like, any nation based on religion, I'm not really sure it's a good idea. Because you know how they have Sharia law in Afghanistan. Everything is run by religion. And woman has to do this on this. Like, Sikhism, it's not that we are against equality. We actually are a big proponent of equality. Not just that factor. I'm just saying, like, once you start running things about according to religion, it's a big no-no.
And I guess, not like, I don't really know much about the situation, but if you did break away, you kind of have that issue of like, okay, you break away and you've made like a religious country where it's like, this is our religion. But then you think about it, all your neighbors are kind of, maybe not officially, but they're kind of like your enemy because they're the other religion. So it's like you kind of isolate yourself even further because not only are you your own thing, you're surrounded by, you know, the opposite religion now. Yeah. But I was reading just recently that like seems like that kind of breaking away or like fracturing or like segmenting of like existing countries is getting like more and more common, or like just talk of it is getting more and more common. So there's been talk, probably never going to happen, but that Texas wants to pull away from like America.
Yeah.
And then I was reading something in the news about, I think it's Idaho, which is like a state in America. They want to start claiming like a little bit of their neighboring country. Oh, it's the neighboring state. What is it? Oregon, maybe? They want to like claim a bit of it as their own because the people in that part of Oregon align more closely with Idaho. And then obviously you got England leaving the European Union, and then there's talk about the European countries want to do the same. It seems like that kind of like breaking up or fracturing into like smaller units is kind of...
Why do you think that is? Like, is this... sometimes I do believe in conspiracy theories. I feel like something is happening in the background and they don't want us to focus on those things. And that's why they propose these ideas, or this is breaking. Like I was listening on Joe Rogan that the one guy was proponent of Texas being its own country. And Joe Rogan was like, oh, I don't want to be using a passport to move to Texas or go back to New York. And do you think it's a beneficial thing to have like multiple nation and number of nations are increasing, or it is a good idea just to merge everything together?
If you think about it, I guess, like over time, going back in history, like we were like a lot more segmented. Like basically we were like smaller units of like living groups, tribes, villages, like towns, cities, and then like kind of areas, districts. It seems like over time we've kind of grown a little bit, obviously then America got formed and they were basically one big country. And, like Europe, even though they're still kind of a lot of separate countries, they kind of form like working groups like the European Union and stuff like that. So it seems the trajectory is that you kind of get bigger and bigger and kind of more, what's the word? Like you kind of work together more in these bigger working like groups. So I think like that's kind of the trajectory things are going. But for whatever reason, it's kind of, I don't know, there's like a bit of like pushback at some point and like people want to break back away into smaller groups. But I don't know, like I don't really know if that's a good thing or bad thing.
But I think sometimes I do get the idea. Undertaker from wrestling?
Yeah.
Right? So this thing was happening in America in COVID, or still happening, the wokeness, still happening. But whatever America starts, it kind of goes all around the world anyway. So America has seen the peak of wokeness. Now it's going down. But I think India probably, let's say, 10 years behind. So we're going to have that movement as well.
I'd love to see like what wokeness looks like in India. Because I think of like, Americans, like, very wealthy. They've got everything we ever wanted. Like, and that's kind of how that stuff, I guess, seeps in. Like when the hardest thing of your day is like what coffee you want to buy in the morning.
Yeah,
it's easy to start getting up in arms about like, anything like that movie that came out 20 years ago and all of a sudden it's offensive to one group of people. But I wonder what that's going to look like in India. Because like right now I just see India, it's like, it's quite gritty, but obviously it's like a bit rough around the edges. It's not like quite like a first world like America yet at the moment. So I wonder how that's going to look like in 10 years time.
Yeah. I want to come back to Undertaker point.
Okay,
but before I do that, I'll answer your question. India has started, I think Bollywood sets a lot of the standards. So I think movies and medias are the perfect way to condition people and manipulate people. So this new movie came out, I think, few months back. It was about obesity, right? So I am a big proponent of health. You know me and you know my schedule and you know how psycho I get when it comes to fitness.
Yeah, serial killer hours when you go to the gym.
Yeah. So that's me. That's my stance. Like I cannot sacrifice that part of my life. I have to keep on going till my body allows me to. So this movie came out about two girls. They were quite fat. They were not getting dates or whatever. And the conclusion of the movie was, you know what? This is us. We're going to be like this. So if somebody likes us or don't like us, we don't care. So we encourage everybody to be yourself. If you're fat, you stay fat. If you want to eat 1,000 burgers in a day, you eat that and don't care about how people think. So this was the conclusion. So these are the things which are the first step of wokeness entering India, right? So when I made that episode about like this is not good, I did get a pushback even from my friends. Oh, you can't say these kind of things. So then I see the conditioning. Even my friends are into it. Like that is the first part of wokeness, when people are just kind of pushing you away. So that is one part. Like India is it's on the fence, probably 10 years down the line, when we have a bit more money, which we will. Like I said, the economy is kind of growing now. So when we have a lot of money, when we don't have real problems, then we'll start fighting on these wokeness things. Now, coming back to Undertaker, like why people or countries want to separate and build their own nation. Undertaker made a really good point. I was listening to him, and he was not in the character, obviously. He was like real. Mark, his name is, real name. So he was talking to somebody. He was like, you know what? A lot of the people at that point of time were moving to Texas because New York or California was getting too woke. And the real people or really conservative people or people who cared, they were like, fuck this. We can't handle this wokeness anymore because people are getting stupid, mental health people. They just all bombarding you with so much stuff. They're like, okay, let's move to Texas, like Joe Rogan, Elon Musk. A lot of people moved. So somebody asked, because Undertaker is Texan, somebody asked him, how do you feel about these people coming to Texas? He said, you know what? We welcome everybody else. Yeah. Oh, no, whoever wants to come in, they can come in. But leave the culture and embrace Texas. So that is, I think, the big part when people, they move to different countries, they're quite reluctant to let go of their culture. And when they bring in their culture, like for example, I say many, many times to Indians or Punjabi Indians, if you are coming here, let's say New Zealand, you were seeking something better. You wanted to be better. And you like the country, you like the infrastructure. That's why you were coming here. But if you want to be doing the same things what you were doing in India, what's the point of coming here? You need to be embracing the culture. So for example, if all the Indians, or let's say all the Kiwis go to India, but they do not embrace the Indian culture and they bring their Kiwiness to India, we'll be like, you know what? We need more strict immigration policies, so culture stays apart. There is no mingling. I think that's how this idea starts, when there is a mixing up of culture and people hate that idea. Like, you know what? We need our own country. Would you agree?
Yeah, I think so. Because I think the bigger something is, like, you look at an entity like America, the bigger it is, I think there's going to be more division. Like there's going to be more people on each side saying, this is how you do it. No, this is how you do it. And I think that when you kind of scale up to like a country level, that division gets quite big. Whereas if a place like, say, Texas, we just use that as example, excuse me, there'll 100% be division in Texas, but it's easier to manage, and it just seems like a more achievable thing to kind of manage that division in that small area. When you start scaling up to like a big country level, that gets a lot more difficult. And it's probably the same with your country. Like I'm sure in your area, Punjab,
yeah,
there'd be like a lot of variation in what people believe in that area, right? Some people are like this way, some people are that way, blah, blah, blah. But it's probably a lot easier to kind of deal with. And it's almost like you can kind of tolerate those differences, I guess, when you feel like it's your people, it's your kind of it's like you're all the same religion, you're all the same race, and it kind of feels like even if your neighbor believes this crazy thing, you can kind of tolerate it a bit more because you're kind of all the same group. Whereas if you all of a sudden say you in your region and then someone the other side of India and you believe different things, you believe this, they believe that, but then all of a sudden they're not like you, they're a little bit different, they're further removed from you.
Yeah.
It gets harder to kind of merge those two together.
Yeah. I think that's why we we have the hierarchy that on top you have prime minister or president or whoever. Then you have chief ministers who handles the state. Then you have MPs handling city or MLAs. So we have these kind of hierarchies. Don't you think we should be, people should be making the hierarchy more formidable, if that's a word, than just separating?
What do you mean formidable?
Like more stronger, making it more stronger or structural. So everything goes well. I'm not, I do understand on one part, but again, once you start separating, it's just gonna cause more confusion, I would say, and more buffer states and more neighbors you have, more conflicts you have.
Yeah. I do wonder, just as you're saying that, I wonder if, because any country, pick a country, say like New Zealand, like we've got a central government, and this is a central government, and they kind of govern the whole of New Zealand. But, there's obviously heaps of different views within New Zealand, but the central government, they kind of have to take, not on everything, but they kind of often plant themselves in one category. We're in this camp or in this camp, and so as soon as they do that, they're just like, by planting themselves in one category or camp, they kind of isolate the other people that aren't in that camp. So it's almost like, I wonder if the problem of that kind of segregated groups finding it difficult to find that common ground, I mean, when you do have like a government, which is very much central to the country, they because they are obviously going to isolate other parts of the country that don't share their beliefs. So I don't know, like would an answer for that having like a more well-rounded government, which includes like lots of different areas. I don't know how that would work, what that would look like, but
somebody asked me a question a few days back. I was on a podcast, and I always say like we shouldn't be dividing countries anymore, and because people are mingling around because of the internet, and now we can travel. Like I'm here, and if I, let's say, metaphorically speaking, if I end up with a Kiwi chick, a kid's gonna be mixed, then kid's gonna be dating more Kiwis. Then like everybody's gonna be beige, probably, let's say in 100 years or 200 years, and we're gonna have one language, which is a good thing, and the culture's gonna be redundant, religion's gonna be redundant, and most likely in few hundred years we'll have a threat from outside world, and then we'll be together. And somebody asked me, if democracy is not working, or the governments are redundant in few hundred years, what is the next step? You think we are going to have a council, like World Council? How are we going to be handling the earth? Or the agency is going to take over? What you reckon?
I don't know. That's a good point. Like, I mean, yeah, so like, I guess to get a little bit conspiratorial, like a council seems like the best idea, to have a big group of like, selected individuals which together govern the whole world. But I wonder if the world is kind of, like one large group of people, is that going to mean like people want to fight for the control of that entire group of 7, 8, whatever billion of us?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, just changing the topic. One idea occurred to me. One of the reason we also click, me and Taylor, he's one of my best mates. We do click because we are kind of like yin and yang. Like our personalities are so contrasted. Like we have had this discussion many, many times, like how we see our future. What I think I'm going to be in future and what he thinks what he's going to be in future. Like I come from a village and we had this discussion many, many times, and he comes from city, and you have traveled a lot, I think in Europe, and this is basically my first country. And I see the trajectory going. Like every time I ask him, what do you want to be, Taylor? He's like, I want to settle in a farm and probably have beehives and have animals, cows and buffaloes,
some cattle,
and
lose a few teeth.
And he asked me, what do you want to be? I'm like, I want to be in a suit, working in a big corporation, and that's my future. And it just really fascinated to see how people's background or the past can condition them And I see your trajectory, like you already have a beehive. You have started your beehive company. What was the name? Good Hive?
The Good Hive.
And he's starting his page now, and he's going balls deep balls deep in his future. I think your trajectory is gonna be that way, or hanging out with me. You reckon that's conditioning you in a different way?
No, I think that's the way I'm like kind of heading, and I want to head, and I'm going to continue to try head that way.
Yeah.
Have you heard of like the kind of like the argument, like the whole nature versus nurture? And it's like the idea is like an individual.
Yeah.
How much of like, say, we'll pick you for example, like you, like as you are today, like all your beliefs and like where you want to head in life. So you're saying you want to kind of have that office job, and you want to be in like the top story of a building, being an asshole and firing people and stuff. But how much of that is like your nature, your innate nature that you're born with, whatever that is, whether that's like your genetics that got passed down to you, or how much of that is nurture? So by nurture isn't like just experiences you had as a kid, like your village that you grew up as a kid, or your kind of ups and downs you had, like school and then deciding to come to New Zealand and all that stuff. Because there's, I don't know, some people say there's an argument that all of us could be exactly the same at birth. So you, me, that guy over there, like there's nothing different from us when we were first born. And it's only through different experiences that we kind of get shaped to kind of become the person we are. So for instance, like you being born when you were born made you, become you now. And me being born the way I was born made me become me now. So in that way, maybe like everything, like a whole person's entire personality can be traced back their whole life. So basically, if you wound back the clock on your life, it makes perfect sense while you're here, the person you are now. So yeah, so maybe like you're saying, like you want, that kind of more corporate job. I want like that rural life,
Yeah.
Maybe that's because, and that could just be a result of where we were born, our upbringing. Obviously, you got born in like a farm.
But big part, you reckon it's nurture, not nature?
Well, that's the thing. Like, there could actually be what you might call like a genetic element to it, or like a...
Yeah, one example I see. Remember we, in one of the Christmas parties, we went for archery. Were you in that party?
Yeah.
I think you were.
I was
you
there.
were.
Yep.
Okay. So here I see how the nature works. There are some gifts you have which are in your DNA. You're just natural at it, right? And everybody was struggling with their archer, with bow and arrow, right? So somebody couldn't even shoot. Some people couldn't even shoot. So I grabbed it, and that was me first time grabbing bow and arrow, pulled it, and perfect. And all the shots that I was hitting, and the movement or the pose I had was perfect. So I think it was just that kind of thing is in your DNA. Like I'm pretty sure there are some parts of your life you never committed or you never attempted them before. And the first time you tried it, you were just perfect at it. So I think those kind of things are embedded in your DNA, but your trajectory is decided by your nurturing, how you were nurtured.
Yeah.
Would you agree? Like, do you have any skill which you attempted for the really first time, and all of a sudden you were bloody good? Like this podcasting, you're the first time, you're sitting on the chair and you're just shooting perfectly.
Yeah, I see what you're saying. Like, yeah, that's a good point. And I guess, like genetic makeup. So everyone's different. Like, you're short, I'm tall.
Yeah.
Like, or whatever. But that probably influences other parts of your life as well. Like if you're a tall person, there's certain activities that you might not excel at because you're going to be bad because you're too long, your legs are too long and stuff. And then similarly, if you're a short person, there's certain activities that you're not going to do. So that probably kind of your physical makeup and your physical body definitely would have some influence on like what you excel at. Because usually what you excel at are things that you enjoy. And if you enjoy and excel at them, you tend to pursue those more. So yeah, that's definitely, I think that probably has a good part to play in it.
Yeah. One thing I see in Taylor, many times I was quoting this line from our religious book, which says, it's going to be in Punjabi, like Nanak Dukhiya Sab Sansar. That means everybody's sad, everybody's suffering some kind of misery, and they are struggling with their thoughts or whatever. But many times when I pose this question to Taylor, like, Taylor, what are you suffering with? He always, or you always seem so neutral. You're like, I'm quite happy. I'm not really sad. That was always your answer. And you're quite laid back. You're not stressing about life. And every time I see you in office, like, I can talk to this guy. He's not going to give me any sob stories. So on personal level, what do you do that makes you so laid back in life and not bothering all those aspects of your life? If you have any bad or good ones, they're not bothering you in any way.
I think back to kind of like what we're just talking about, that kind of nature versus nurture. Like, I definitely think I was kind of blessed, or maybe blessed is the wrong word. Maybe it's just random. And like, I was lucky enough. I don't even know if lucky, it's just what I received was that my kind of personality swings, or kind of my mood swings, or kind of how I kind of move through life at like an emotional level is very kind of like a very mellow wave. Like, I have my ups and then I have my downs, but then there's other people that I know and like who I've seen who are a lot more like up and down and up and down. Yeah, and I think part of that is just like it's just like what I was born with. I mean, like I don't think I do anything crazy. Like, I don't go, like there's no like secret recipe to why I feel like that. But I think, I think I've always been a person that whatever I like to do, or whatever I feel like drawn to do, I'm just going to do that. I'm not going to like bullshit myself and do something that I know I'm not going to enjoy. Yeah. Like, I've always felt that way. Like, I kind of had a few friends in like school and university that they kind of like, they moved to like jobs or like careers that I know they don't like. They, it might pay well, or it might just be easy and convenient for them. But I don't know. I don't think I was ever, I just couldn't do that. Like, I couldn't just like jump into something that I knew that I wouldn't enjoy. So I think that's a big one. Just kind of like picking something that I know, it might not be like the perfect career or the perfect job, but it's like, you know what? I enjoy that. I like it. I'm going to do it. Yeah. So I think that's probably part of it as well.
Okay. Let's switch up the gear. Something's going to my mind.
Oh,
so fuck that. Okay. Is there a white people thing? One thing I see in white people are full of confidence, all of them, and no insecurities. If white people want to do something, this is coming from brown guy, like how we see white people, a lot of confidence. And if you want to do something, you just do it. And for us, there are a lot of filters. At one point of time, I was thinking, it was last year, quite bad for me. I was thinking, I'm going to quit my job. Like, I'm going to work on this full time. And I discussed that with my sister, and she was like, you know what? You're going through something. You shouldn't be quitting your job. If you quit your job, how are you going to earn money? So I was like, okay, there's no point talking to her, because again, it's just a rat race thing. It's just a rut. Like, us Indians or Punjabi Indians get into this rut where a job is really important. I discussed the same thing with my parents as well. They're like, yeah, it's not a good idea to, But if I was Taylor, I won't even discuss it with my sister or with my parents. I would just go straight into it. You reckon if you were in that situation, you would just do it?
So first thing I will say is that if I was to do something, what might seem as like crazy, just like quit my day job and just like go into something with, I'm not sure if I can even make a living. If I ask my parents that, like, my parents are very rational as well. They'll be like, don't do that. Like, that's not a smart move. So I think that's kind of a parent thing. Parents, obviously, you don't want your kid to end up homeless or just have nothing. So, as a parent, you need to be a little bit more conservative of like what you tell your parents to do. So that's one thing. But yeah, I think I kind of where I am now is like, if you want to dive into something, like whether for you it's podcasting, whatever it is, the way I'm kind of at this stage in life, like the way I'm thinking about it is that you don't want to just throw away everything to the point where you've got nothing and just, like just go all out for something, because that could work. Like, I'm not saying that could be a way to success, but right now I'm like, all right, if I have this thing that I really want to do, I'm going to still do it, but I'm going to do it like in a way that I'm not going to just like lose everything, lose all my money, end up, without a job, without a home, without a place to stay. So that's kind of where I'm at now. Like, it's kind of, basically it's like the whole idea of like a side hustle. So yeah, like I don't think I've got the confidence anyway at this point stage just to like quit everything and just dive into something. But for me, it's like, you can still do something, but do it cleverly. Like do it smart, keep kind of your stable job going, but you just have to put in all the extra work on the side. Yeah. And that's hard. Like, it kind of does. It's very tiring, but I think it pays off, or I think it's going to pay off. Like,
yeah. One point you mentioned long time ago, and many times as well. You were saying, these Insta motivators who motivate you to do this and this and this, and also about the stock market. You articulated that point perfectly, that whoever gets successful, which is a really small portion, right? So we highlight that only, but we don't see how many people failed. And we are kind of like blindsided to that part. And we see these stories on Instagram or social media, and we're like, okay, if they have done it, we can do it as well. But we don't see how many people failed, So yeah, that's a good point from you. Like, just don't quit your day job, which is giving you stable income, But it's really, really, sometimes what I go through these days is like, okay, am I gonna do 9 to 5 my whole life? Am I gonna do this my whole life, like waking up and working for somebody else? Or am I gonna find something of my own? Like, the ideas are not coming. And I think sometimes I get too overwhelmed.
I think like, I think the way to do it is to find the thing that you think that, like, all right, this is my thing. This is what I'm going to do. This is what I'm going to like throw all my resources into, throw all my time, all my spare time into, just devote myself completely. I think that when you find that, it doesn't matter if you're 18, 20, 40, 50, 60. I think it's like, it's not really important, like what age. I don't think there's any expiry date or, best before date. I think as soon as you find that thing, you just have to dive into it, and just focus on that completely and just devote all your spare available time to it.
What is your thing?
My thing at this right now is to have my own bee business. I want to have my own beekeeping business where it's just like just mine, and I can, just run it entirely myself, and I'm on my own schedule. I can, I'm not reliant on any kind of boss or manager, and I can maybe have like a couple of staff members, like really small, lean. Yeah. Nice.
And how many stings you get in a week while working on bees?
When I'm like in like doing like a lot of beekeeping.
Yeah.
Say I do like a whole day of beekeeping. I don't know, like it depends. I'd probably get stung maybe like 2 to 5 times. So
a day or
a day?
A day.
Yeah. So if I do a full day of beekeeping, and like say during the busy time, I'm doing like 2 days a week, which is usually my weekends.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe like 2 to 5 stings a day. So that's actually not too bad.
Yeah.
Like I always get at least 1, maybe 2, but then sometimes it'd be like a particularly bad day when they're grumpy and you might get closer to 5.
Yeah.
But yeah, probably about that.
Yeah. Greg took me once to the beehives. Even I think you were there as well.
That's right. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, and just lifting hives, and it was just so... I found it really disgusting. No offense, though. Like putting on your gear, you're sweaty, you're stinky.
Yeah.
And then you in the mud.
Yeah.
And doing all those things. What is the worst part for you being a beekeeper? Because, again, like I grew up kind of like... I'm doing farming since, of course, my father is a farmer, right? And there were some days I completely hated it. I was like, I'm not doing this for my living at least, and my kids are not doing this. So that's why I gravitated towards cleanliness, which is obviously the office. So what is the worst part for you when you're doing beekeeping?
The worst part is definitely, like, a lot of people don't know this who don't actually have never been beekeeping, but everything's heavy. Everything is heavy, and you know this. Like honey is heavy, beehives are heavy, and the thing is, it's not like going to the gym where you like lift a barbell and it's all like on a nice flat floor and it's all perfectly balanced, and you've got this amount. You got like 30 kgs on the side, 30 kgs on the side. It's nice and even. It's all awkward. Like it's all, you got to pick things up at an angle, and like you're walking to the truck and the ground's like this, and then like you're trying to like pick up another beehive, but it's awkward. There's a tree in the way, so you're kind of coming in on the side.
Yeah,
I think that's the hardest part. It's like heavy shit that you have to pick up at weird angles.
Yeah.
So there's like basically like it's kind of knowing that like to be a beekeeper, like your back gets hammered.
Yeah.
Like pretty much every beekeeper has a bad back because of that, because it's just like picking up heavy stuff at bad angles. So,
but is it worth it? How prolific or profitable the thing is? If you spend like say 6 months on your business, how much money do you get out of it?
Oh, that entirely depends on the business. So, you know, like I've heard of beekeepers that are like barely scraping money together. Like, you know, they're just barely getting by. But then there's other beekeepers who like are just absolutely like making massive money. And it's like anything. Like it's not like a get quick rich scheme. Get quick rich scheme.
Yeah.
Not at all. Like it's entirely how you run your business. It's just like anything. Like some people are good at running businesses and they know how to make it profitable, and they know how to diversify into other things, and they know how to kind of maximize their profits.
Yeah.
But then there's other people that are just kind of doing the bare minimum and just making, you know, like, you know, enough money to kind of keep paying the bills. So I don't know. I'm not at that point where I'm like, obviously it's not like a full-time thing for me. It's like a very small business. So I'm not really sure what camp I'll be in. I'm hoping I'm going to be in like the good profitable camp.
Yeah.
But we'll see. Time will tell. Like I'm running it at a very small scale.
Sometimes I get embarrassed, like me working in the company. It's almost 7 years, and we are working together from last probably 4 or 5 years.
4, yeah.
4 years. And yes, I make bee equipment, and I make all sort of stuff in the factory. But sometimes customers come and they ask me, you know what? We are thinking of starting this beehiving stuff, but we don't know what to buy and what to get. And they ask me stuff. I was like, even I don't know what to recommend you, because I'm just so fixated or so tunnel visioned on manufacturing only, handling manufacturing.
And it's kind of, I think it's also because you're not that interested in it. Like,
yeah, I hate it.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, well, you know what? I'm going to just build the gear and send it out. Just don't ask me how you use it, why you use it. And Greg asked me, our boss, asked me so many times, you have to have your hives. Like, never can happen. So, okay. So simple. The question was like, if somebody has to start beekeeping, how do they start? Like what kind of gear they need? Do they just buy one box and they're good to go?
First way to start, I think, is to do a bit of research. Like, I think that's always a good place to start, because sometimes if you just start so that's always the best place to start, because it can get overwhelming. So it's good to have that kind of base of knowledge. And like these days, everything's on YouTube. You can go onto YouTube and just like watch so many beginner introduction videos on how to keep bees. So that's your first step. And then what you want to do after that is you want to buy 2 beehives. So, and then buy a beehive. Basically, you can just buy them from like an established beekeeper, and that's just like, you know, it's just like the base, the hive, the lid.
Yeah.
But basically, that's what we call a beehive. All the equipment for like that is involved in it, that's just called a beehive. So, I'd say you have to buy 2. 2 is always the best number to go with, because more often than not, one will struggle. And like, you know, not all hives are equal. Not all bee colonies are equal. Some are strong and, you know, able to like survive well through winter. Others struggle. Others kind of get sick, or they're not really resilient bees. So having 2 means that you can kind of help out your weak colony by using bits and pieces from your strong colony. So you can take bees from the strong colony, put it in the weak colony, help boost them both back up. Yeah.
So you also deal with honey. You're selling honey these days. How's that going? Is that good, or you have to struggle a lot, or how do you market? your honey.
So it's good. Like there's two ways to sell honey really. And that is bulk, wholesale.
Yeah.
Or sell it yourself in jars. So selling bulk is easy. Like anyone can do that. Basically, you just put your honey into a big drum, find someone that wants to buy it and then just give them the drum. They give you the money, problem solved. Problem with that is that you kind of accept the price that they give you. So you don't really set the price. They come to you and like, all right, we're going to give you X dollars per kg for this drum.
Yeah.
And basically you're a price taker. So the other option is when you're selling your own honey and like you're putting it into jars or, whatever size jar that is, then you set the price. So you say, all right, here's my honey. I'm going to sell it for X amount of money. So it's always, always, always more profitable to do it that way. But the only problem with it is it's a lot harder. It's a lot more difficult because then you're the one that has to market it.
Yeah.
You're the one who has to sell it. You're the one who has to find, markets for people to buy your honey.
Yeah. How, is it not sugar, the honey? Is there any health benefits? Because people drink honey and lemon in the morning. Is that something people should be doing? Or is it just another form of glucose or fructose or whatever that is?
It's 100% got sugar in it. So it's got glucose and fructose in it. So it's got sugar in it. So 100%. So it's definitely something that you need to eat in moderation. Like you shouldn't just be eating spoonfuls of honey because that's not good for you.
Yeah.
But what honey does have is it's got a lot of micronutrients. So small, like it's got like some proteins and then just got other little like micronutrients like vitamins and minerals that you don't have in sugar. So basically when you eat honey, yeah, you're eating sugar and, too much sugar is bad for you, but you are getting a lot of extra benefits through these micronutrients. And yeah, there's studies of this, like, they've identified a bunch of these and I don't know, I'd think like you're saying, like lemon and honey and water is great when you're sick. Like so many times I'm sick and I have that and it just helps so much. So yeah, I think it's definitely has like health benefits, but you can't you can't just be eating it by the spoonful.
Yeah. I've heard this many times, like New Zealand's honey is considered like champagne amongst wine. Is that true? Like what is so special about New Zealand honey?
Well, I think first off, like New Zealand kind of has that image of being like a very clean, green place. Like it's not to say we don't have like pollution and like bad agricultural practices like fertilizers. It happens here, but I think it happens on a lot smaller scale. Yeah. So, like we do, like in some areas, things like antibiotics are banned. Yeah. So some certain farming practices, farmers can't use antibiotics. Where in other overseas, antibiotics are just everywhere. Yeah. Like everywhere. They just use it for everything. So I think we have some benefits there because we have some of these bad practices aren't used at a big scale. And then obviously off the back of that is like Manuka honey, which kind of got touted as like the best, most healthy honey for you. And that kind of became a bit of a worldwide phenomenon. So I think people see that and, as kind of having us having a superior honey through Manuka honey.
What is Manuka honey? Like what benefits it has as compared to any Kanuka or normal honey?
So long story short, so there was a scientist back in the, when was it? Maybe like early 2000s that found that all honey kills bacteria. So certain bad bacteria, if you apply honey to them, it will kill them. But they figured out what, like there's a particular protein in honey that all honeys have, and that's what's responsible for killing the bacteria. But what the scientist did is he took normal honey and he added what's called an inhibitor or a protein inhibitor. So that specific protein which is killing the bacteria, they can knock it out so it's inactive, so it doesn't do anything. So it stops being effective against bacteria. So what he did was he knocked out that protein with, ordinary honey. And what he saw was that all of a sudden it wouldn't kill bacteria, which makes sense. So the protein which kills the bacteria is ineffective, so the bacteria keeps on growing. Then he did the same with Manuka honey, and he knocked out that protein, and he applied it to the bacteria, and what he found was it still killed bacteria, So basically what he concluded is that there's something else in Manuka which is responsible for killing bacteria, and not just that one protein that all honeys have. So that's kind of where it, like, the hype all started. So basically they've kind of identified what that was, but yeah, it had extra antibacterial properties above and beyond ordinary honey. And that's kind of how it got started. And then New Zealand kind of took that and ran with it and marketed it to the world. And then, yeah, it just kind of became like a bit of a worldwide phenomenon. And it's delicious. Like, Manuka honey is, it's such a good honey.
I can't tell the difference.
Can't tell it?
We have that honey competition in office. Like, every honey tasted the same for me. Like, I can't tell. Like, honey is honey for me. I don't experiment with food much anyway.
Yeah.
Just one thing I eat every day.
You're not like the culinary expert that would know the difference, would you?
So is it like more runny or more solid?
More solid.
So solid is good, basically.
It's just different. Basically, the consistency of honey, so firmness, softness, runniness, it's all to do with the different sugars that the honey is made up of. So some honeys might have more glucose, or some honeys might have more fructose. And so that's really the only difference between runny and solid honey. But I don't think anyone's better or worse. They're just different. That's kind of why honey's nice, because, you can have a honey that's very thick and like heavy, and then other honeys which are very like light and runny.
Yeah, I was playing with the idea. You know how you plant Manuka trees around the hives if you want Manuka honey. I was like, what if I put a lot of weed around hives, so the honey they produce, would you get high though? It's a good idea though. You reckon that happens?
The only problem with that though is that weed, I don't think, flowers. So bees only forage off flowers, because that's where they get the nectar
How about
from.
Opium? They have flowers.
Poppies.
Poppies, yeah.
Yeah. Don't know. I have no idea. There is in Tibet or Nepal. I think
Nepal, Himalayas. I
Yes.
think you're about to go to.
Yeah. They call it mad honey, but it's like I think it's the plant's called rhododendron, and it's the bees in Nepal go visit the rhododendron flower, and they take the nectar back and make honey from it. And yeah, apparently it makes you like high, basically. Yeah.
Serious. So that happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a good idea to pitch to a big company. I think they are weed is illegal. Even opium is illegal here in New Zealand.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
So I think there are some companies which do it legally. It's a good idea to approach them and say, you know what, we have this proposal. Why don't we put the hives around your area?
Yeah.
Yeah. That can become a thing.
There's a company which are putting CBD.
CBD oil, yeah.
Yeah, so CBD, it's kind of like in weed, you've got THC and CBD. CBD is like, it's not the one that makes you high, but it's like more like a relaxant, like a muscle relaxant. I know they put that in honey.
Yeah.
And kind of like make a very, like a CBD honey, which you take, and it's very like relaxing and good anti-inflammatory properties.
Yeah.
But
I'm still, I've tried weed once, and that was a few months back. It was horrible experience for me. Like, I learn about it, I read about it, I hear about it, I listen about it a lot, like how people get so many benefits. Like some of my YouTube friends, they're like, oh, before we write, we get high, because then you get ideas, a lot of idea, you have access to a different dimension, And the one experience I had, I just took a puff, and I was just coughing. Just one puff. I was like, fuck this. I can't do this anymore. What is the best way? I'm not really sure you are a weed expert. I don't know how many times you got high. But if you have to recommend, like, how do you get high?
So first off, I wonder if you took too much, because that can be a problem. Like, I think especially if you've never done it, some people, if they take way too much, it kind of freaks them out, because it's weird. It's like, if you're not used to it, it's different. It's like your brain is here. Yeah. And it's like your brain is just getting moved to a different place in consciousness. So it's very weird for some people. So I think sometimes it's important not to do too much, especially when you're starting out.
But it was just all smoke. I think nothing happened in my brain. Like, I didn't get paranoid or anything.
Okay.
So I was just puffing it in.
Coughing.
And I was just coughing. Just one puff. And I was like, fuck this. I can't have this.
So what, did you smoke a joint? So it's like a cigarette?
It was something like that.
Yeah, so the problem with a joint is that it's very hard on your throat, because like, at the end of the day, like, you know, it's if you're inhaling smoke, it's not great for you. It's not good. So I think what you need to do next time, if you are to do it again, is you can use like a bong, which you can actually put ice cubes in it. So basically, when you suck the smoke out, it goes through the ice cubes and it cools it down. So by the time the smoke hits your lungs, it's cold. It's like very cold smoke.
It's like shisha?
Yeah, like shisha. Because shisha pulls it through water.
Yeah.
So by doing that, it cools it down.
Yeah.
So yeah, 100% like shisha. So that's one way to do it. And then the other way to do it is that you can actually put it into, like, you can bake with it. You can make like cookies and stuff out of weed.
Yeah.
And then you eat it. And basically it's probably the most healthy way because you're not actually inhaling any smoke at all.
Yeah.
So I think if you were to do it again, that would be the way. Don't do too much because you don't want to freak yourself out. And then either pull it through like water or ice, like a shisha, or eat it.
Yeah.
But then you got to be careful with eating it because, like, I don't know if you know this, but when you cook it, it becomes way more potent. Like way more potent.
Have you tried it?
Yeah.
Was it good?
Yeah, it was good. Like I didn't go too crazy. Like it definitely like hit me pretty hard, but like I didn't go too crazy. But the problem is that like, yeah, it's a lot harder to dose correctly, like take the right dose.
Yeah.
And then people have like, you know, you hear stories about people just eating way too much and then just getting like way too high. And it's just, yeah, again, it's back to that don't take too much idea because then they just start freaking out and yeah, it's not good.
Yeah, it's a weird thing for me because my culture, it kind of, they're quite reluctant on consuming weed. But in my religion, kind of the Sikh warriors, they would consume it by drinking it, and before they fight, they would take this. And even Vikings, they used to have this mushrooms. You know, they would eat and they would see Odin. So it's weird for me. Like, there's a stigma around in modern times. Like, okay, if you're consuming weed, you must be an addict. You know.
Yeah.
And over here, you see good friends. Even we do hide the fact that we are consuming it because it's not legal in New Zealand.
Yeah.
But some people do it, and yeah, I'm just again on the fence. Like, should I start consuming it to access different dimensions and start writing more potent or shit? You know. So yeah, I think I need a supervisor next time I have it. So I think we need to get high sometimes.
Okay. We'll put that on our things to do list.
Yeah. So the first question, when I asked you, should we start a podcast in English? What do you reckon?
Yeah, we can give it a go.
What would you name it?
I have no idea. Absolutely no idea. So I need to think about that.
Yeah. So we have all the gear we need. And we have done 1 hour.
Has it been an hour?
An hour.
That went really quick, eh?
Yeah.
I was thinking like before we started, I was like, oh man, I feel like I'm not going to be able to talk for an hour. I'm going to run out of things to say. But that was fast.
Now, anything, I think once you're comfortable, because I was still seeing you, and I can see it, you are in this deer in headlight moment. And this is your first podcast. That's why you're just panicked, because your ideas are still not flowing. Because sometimes when we have discussions, we go deep, and we can talk for hours and hours and hours. But you in that deer in a headlight moment, and I think you are quite filtered and quite strict on yourself.
Yeah, it's just it's like there's some extra variables which make it weird. Like you know, when we're chatting ourselves, it's like easy, but then you're like talking in this, and I can hear this, and you and lights,
the cameras and the lights are just kind of surreal moment. I never thought that I'll build this. The first time I was proposing the idea, I was in the kitchen, and remember that stand, the phone stand, holding your phone, and you were in the kitchen, and Willow was in the kitchen, and I was in the kitchen, and I just received it 2 years back, and I was just setting it up in the kitchen, in the office kitchen, and I was seeing how it is, the tightness of it, and how I'm gonna put my phone into it. And Willow came and she was like, "Oh, she sarcastically, oh, are you gonna be a YouTuber?" And I was like, oh, should I tell her that I'm about to start a YouTube account? I'm like, I shouldn't.
Yeah,
I shouldn't, because she's gonna mock me. Like, another one. There's so many YouTubers out there.
Yeah.
But I just, now when I look and see my progression, all those gears and there's fascinating.
Do you know what I just thought? You could, like, this podcast studio you've got going on, this could be, you could turn this into like an OnlyFans studio.
Oh, yeah.
Do some OnlyFans on the side.
Yeah, why not? I have a sexy body and I can show it up, and why not?
Why not?
A lot of people earning a lot of money from OnlyFans.
Oh, yeah.
Like, I've seen some interviews of girls online. Fuck, they are making millions a year.
Oh,
man.
they're rich as, yeah.
And then I see like how our society is going. Like, prostitution is one of the oldest professions.
Oldest profession, yeah.
And now the prostitution has moved to online or internet. And people used to be ashamed of like showing themselves on the internet. But now it is kind of, people embrace it. And people are like, you know what? We're just doing it for fun. Like, we are selling our nudes for fun. We are just naked for fun, as long as it gives us money. It's like people have lost their humanity while doing this OnlyFans stuff. And it is just becoming normal these days, especially with the kids. Like, I'm in 30s now. Everybody or anybody in their 21 or 22, it's just kids for me. All those kids, this Gen Z, the idea of right and wrong, I feel it's not even there for them anymore.
Yeah, I think it's like the traditional ideas of morality, or like right and wrong, are starting to kind of just like break down a little bit, or like change a bit. Definitely, I think so.
Yeah, where do you see we end up with all these woke kids, OnlyFans kids? And even if I start my OnlyFans page, where do we end up? Like, there is no right and wrong anymore.
Yeah, I don't know. It's like, it's weird because, like, on some degrees, on some levels, like, you can kind of look at like the course of human history, and it's all, like, if you look at, say, like murder rates or like crime rate, or let's go with murder rates, like, it's 100% like trending down. Like, the amount of murders that, say, were committed in like the Middle Ages versus like the amount of murders now is just like exponentially smaller. And then other kind of like morality questions, like, just like, like, obviously we've done a lot of good, like, like poverty and, like aid for big natural disasters, things like that. Like, it's getting a lot better in this modern age. But at the same time, like, it's almost like our social, like, morality is kind of like on the decline as well.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, on some levels, it's like getting so much better. Like, most people would rather be alive today than 150, 200 years ago.
Yeah.
But then similarly, it's like sometimes just our kind of social fabric is getting a little bit more and more torn apart, and like morality is kind of going down the other side. So I don't know, like, is it part of it is, I wonder if it's like, like traditionally, like, whatever you believe, like the big religious groups that kind of used to have so much control over like people, whether it was like the Christian church, and probably in your case, like the religious organizations, as they kind of started to be like pulled away a little bit from society. Like, it's just what's happening. There's no doubt about it that, like, we're getting less and less religious, more and more kind of atheistic. It's like, yeah, those morals are kind of getting pulled away at the same time.
What a paradox. It's a conundrum as well, but also a paradox. Like, everything you're doing, you want to be happy and you want to be comfortable. And more you do those kind of things, you get more comfortable, like breaking those religious norms and the morality cushions, all those veils and curtains you're lifting. But again, it's a paradox that you get more unhappy, and more comfortable you are, more depressed you are. And we are having this depression era. Like, everybody is anxious. They're thinking about something. Everybody has a baggage of some sort. Like, I sometimes look at my life. It's a perfect life, man. Like, I have whatever I ever wanted, whatever I had dreamed of. I wanted to have a talking skill. I do have that. I wanted to surround myself with gadgets. I have that. I wanted to drive a nice car. I have that. I wanted my friends around me. I have that. But still, that something is missing.
I've been thinking about this a bit recently, is that we all, like, everyone suffers, right? And like suffering exists in the world. Everyone kind of suffers to some extent. But it's almost like everything we do as a society is we're trying to reduce suffering, you know? So like we build these big towns and cities and, you know, so we can like feed everyone and like house everyone. We want to reduce suffering. But I wonder if the amount of suffering in the world is fixed and it's always going to stay fixed. And then nothing we can do can really reduce suffering. And there's nothing that we can do that can increase suffering, kind of, I guess, if you look at the whole thing. And I wonder if it's fixed, because if you look at it that way, yeah, our lives are easier. We don't die of random diseases. We don't get, most of us don't get mauled by like lions as we walk to school or something, you know.
Chopped up by swords.
Chopped up by swords, yeah. But like you're saying, our lives are comfortable, but we're still not happy. We're still miserable. And I wonder if it's just like, well, you're going to suffer like at some point, and it might not be physical suffering, you know, you might live a very comfortable life, you not have disease, but suffering's going to be there. It's fixed in life basically. And so right now we're kind of experiencing more like a mental suffering.
That's a good fucking point. Like we have this karma kind of thing. And now that you mentioned this, now I'm thinking somebody with a white beard sitting upstairs, and he's like, you know what? I'm going to give 2 kgs of suffering to Earth. No matter what you do, you're going to have that 2 kgs of suffering.
Yeah.
Right? So you have this transition from medieval times to this really modern times. So the suffering has transitioned as well. So from medieval suffering, like getting chopped up, and now the suffering is all mental. Like no matter what we do, it's always going to be there. So whatever is in your life, we have this concept of everything is written already before you are born. So you are you're becoming a proponent of that theory, like everything is written, everything is in your kismat, we call it, in your destiny. Determinism.
Yeah. Potentially, like, it's one of those things, like, I don't know. I don't think I'll ever know. I don't think anyone will ever know, but it's definitely, you know, that's definitely an idea which I probably lean a little bit more towards. But yeah, kind of like we're saying, yeah, it's like suffering is kind of moved from one form to another. It's not so much like a, you know, it's not like a physical, obviously we don't suffer in like a physical sense where we have like, you know, we break out in disease or whatever, but it's still going to exist, and it's always going to exist at this level. Like you said, 2 kgs, like if we use that as a unit of measurement, we have our 2 kgs regardless.
Yeah.
Regardless of if it's, you know, medieval times, beyond that, or it's current day, or it's 200 years in the future, we have our 2 kgs. And that's just part of what being a human is. You got to deal with your 2 kgs. And yeah, it definitely seems like some people suffer more than others. And it's just like, there's like, why that is, I don't know. It just, to me, it's definitely, you can't really deny that some people just experience more of that than others. But collectively, as a entire species, we have our 2 kgs and nothing ever changes that.
So some people grab more from that 2 kg than other people.
Seems that way.
You know, and my suffering is just my thoughts. I do get a lot, I get paranoid a lot. I build up these scenarios. No matter what I do, I already just running in my head like, okay, this can happen, this can happen, this can happen.
Yeah.
So that is my suffering.
Yeah.
Like there is no tangible suffering out there for me.
Yeah.
Majority of the time, I'm just suffering my mind.
But I wonder if like what you're experiencing, like kind of think about like not so much like what the specific cause of it is, but kind of the emotional response you have to it, like how you feel. I wonder if that's a very similar feeling as if you were walking to school and like your brother gets mauled by a tiger or your village gets burned down by bandits. Like, you know, if like, I wonder if that kind of emotional suffering is exactly the same regardless of what the cause is. So it doesn't really matter what the cause is. It's like, it's the same. It's always the same. Maybe it's always been the same and it's always going to be the same. And even if like we, you know, move to like where everything's perfect and when every disease is curable and, you know, nothing, nothing bad ever happens per se, it's still going to be there, that same level of suffering.
What a great time. I always say what a great time we get to live in. Like, for me, it's just all the gadgets I get fascinated by, because in my childhood, we don't have any gadgets. We even didn't have those wired phones, I used to go to we have this concept of like one guy represent the whole village, the tribe leader. So we only had like one phone for the whole village, and we used to go to that village to make phone calls. And look at us now, like, we get to live through this transition, and we are still young. We're still in our 30s, and I've seen everything, I feel like. And what is yet to come, I think the best part of technology, when we get rid of our emotions. I think then we'll be just blissful all the fucking time. Like no more thoughts in our heads anymore. So I think we are probably 100 years, not even 100 years, you never know. We are just few more years away from that blissfulness. Singularity, they call it.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yep.
So, yeah.
Yeah. Do you know what the singularity, I've heard the word be tossed around a lot, singularity, but I've never really kind of delved into it to the point where I properly understand it.
I think I was reading about it a few months back. I think when the technology and humanity merges, and when there is no more advancement left anymore. Yeah. And we just hit the peak, and that is a singularity. But again, I need to see properly what that is. So you think how many more things we're gonna find out, like technology wise? We are quite up there. What would you like to see in the modern time? What are you waiting for?
What am I waiting for? Oh, that's a good question. That's a really good question. I think what I'm waiting for is, like we've talked about this, like I kind of like dabbling with the idea of simulation theory.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for the time where there is, you could call it like a video game, like maybe that's a good way to describe it, but it's essentially like just like a hyper-realistic simulation of anything you want. So say, say you want to live out, like a period of time, like a year, 2 years, a lifetime in the medieval ages in England or something, and you want to be like an English knight in the medieval ages, and in 1600s, whatever the time is, and you can be like, all right, and you like press a button, and then you're there, and you can just live out like however long you want in that scenario. Or say you want to live in, like modern China, but like 100 years in the future. Yeah. Whatever your kind of scenario you want to run and you want to experience, you can experience that. And that would be, I think that's my technology, because you could do anything, like you say you're interested in what life was like, this point of time in this region of the world. All you have to do is go press a button and you're there.
Yeah. And you can experience how 9 to 5 feels like. Then you can experience how video game feels like. Then you get to feel like how podcasting feels like. Am I already in the simulation?
Yeah. But that's like the question that like looms that you have to answer. It's like if that is the reality that we start heading towards, who's to say I'm not picked? Okay, I want to be a New Zealander, born in New Zealand in 2023, and work here, live there. So I don't know. It's like
you can choose the difficulty level. Have you seen the South Park?
Oh yeah.
Choose the difficulty level. The more black you are,
harder
it is. Yeah. Like I want to experience New Zealand as an Indian, where I don't speak any English, and I just arrive there and see how the life it is for me. Yeah. So just experiencing stuff.
It's like that unanswerable question. Like you can never answer it, but it looms and you don't know. And like like I was saying, you could pick a period of time. So maybe you want to spend like a year in the Middle Ages, but then maybe, hey, I want to spend a lifetime as in New Zealand, living this particular life. So who knows?
Yeah, when we die, we just wake up somewhere else. It's like, oh, that was a good trip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like, like sometimes when you get like really sucked into a movie. Like you ever watch one of those like really good movies and you're just like fully sucked into it, And then sometimes it's not till like the movie ends that you kind of almost snap out of it and you're like, oh shit. Like
it's just a movie.
Yeah. It's like one of those situations like where right now we've completely forgotten like what's going on. But then, you know, as soon as maybe we die or whatever the ending is, you know, we get to that point where like, oh shit, that's right.
Yeah.
That's right. I ran this simulation. Oh, I completely forgot about that.
Yeah. Now, sometimes when I think we as human species, our brains are really small and we don't know much. And we still come out with these kind of fascinating theories when I watch any fantastic movie, let's say Interstellar. Somebody wrote it, right? Avatar. Somebody wrote it. Somebody thought of it. Like humans are capable of that kind of thinking. Now imagine the entity which designed us, how intricate the thinking of that person or entity is, like what that person or entity can think of, you know? So that kind of fascinates me a lot of time, like how advanced those beings are. Even if this is not simulation, even if this is just normal life and somebody planted us here, like there has to be some kind of mingling around with the chimp's DNA. It's a big theory. Like somebody came down and just fucked up our DNA and made our evolution really, really fast. Because if you see all the other species, they're still there. And we are here making podcasts, few chimps talking shit and earning money on the internet. So somebody did that to us. And how advanced those beings are.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. Yeah.
No, the one more thing I would add to this.
Thank you for saving me. I was like,
yeah.
Oh fuck, where do I go with this?
One theory I was reading, that they might be still among us, and cause we haven't explored the oceans, like 80 or 90% of the oceans we haven't even touched. They are untouched. So what if they are still there cause of the pressure of the water? We've never been that deep.
The deep ocean is like, I find so fascinating. Like it's like, to me it's terrifying. Like it's, you know, like everyone's kind of got their like fear or something that's just really exciting and engaging to them. Like to me, the deep ocean is like all those things. It's like so interesting. It's so exciting, but it's also terrifying. It's like a what do you call it? Like an environment which like we just cannot survive in at all. Like it's just the most opposite environment that we're capable of surviving in. Like, you know, deep ocean, like literally we go down there, our bodies just get crushed like under the weight of all that water. And like we have like no clue what's down there. Yeah. Like 97% or something of the ocean, we don't even know what's there.
97%, fuck.
97% we have no clue what's going on. And I'm like, one of my things that I get really excited about is sea monsters. Like it's always like folklore, and you hear those like folklore tales of sea monsters. But when you think about it, like deep down that deep where it's pitch black, light can't even penetrate that deep. We have no idea what's down there. Yeah. And like, you know, like sometimes we send like a craft like down, but you got to think it's not even going that deep. Like we can't even get to the bottom of like where the ocean's really deep. And even then it's like a tiny little area which we circulate in, and like an entire planet of deep ocean. So I don't know. One of the things that I hope in life and I like wish is that sea monsters exist.
So maybe they are not monster. Maybe they are just different species of different.
Oh yeah. Like I guess we use the word monster to kind of describe them, and it kind of But like extremely large, extremely terrifying species of fish probably live down there.
Extremely large. Maybe they're so large that they can't even come up. Maybe. You know. Yeah. But the recent footage of those, I think jet fighters. Yeah. So I think all those things, the UFOs they've seen, they're just going under. In the ocean. Yeah. And that's where this theory is coming from, that there is a slight chance that they are still here. Those things are still here, and all those craft we've been finding, Area 51 has. I think they were on the Earth. I don't know for how long. You know, so maybe they're still here, and all those Egyptians, all those ancient gods, they just know we are too stupid to find out a way. Like we are just looking up, we never look down. Maybe they're just hiding there and just doing their deeds or controlling us from within.
Yeah.
You know?
It seems like the last 5 years, things are kind of ramping up in that alien space, like UFO space. Like for the longest time, it was always like a bit of a conspiracy, like, oh, you know, that's bullshit. Like you're a bit crazy if you believe it. But it's like in recent years, it's just like started to like involve more and more of like the world authorities. Like, you know, like so many like large military organizations are kind of coming out and saying like, yeah, there's some shit going on.
Yeah.
And then I don't know, like I don't follow it super closely, but you know, you do see something, and then like those balloons recently.
Yeah.
I mean, like a lot of people were kind of saying that there's something to that, but then like the White House comes down, it's like, oh no, nothing going on here, and it's just like I wonder if like there's like cracks in the whole like keeping it, you know, trying to keep it contained. There's cracks, and it's going to open soon.
I also think they are just preparing us. They're about to announce it.
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, what is the timeline for this? And somebody must have said, or general or something, give us probably 15, 20 years. Let us prepare these people on social media so we can release these small clips. We're going to prepare them before we announce that we do have access to other planets, or we do have access to different race or species, you know.
Yeah.
So maybe social media or internet has obviously escalated the speed of these clips, because now people are free as well. And more free people, more talking shit. You know, like we are talking about aliens out of nowhere. We have no knowledge of aliens, but we are still talking about it. Imagine somebody balls deep in conspiracy theories. They're going to obviously talk shit. But I think the governments are preparing us, maybe, and probably 5 years, not even 5 years down the line, they're going to be like, okay, you know, here we go. Area 51, yeah, we've been working on these alien crafts, and this is meet Jack. He's from that system, solar system. So yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, and that kind of like, if they're starting to release that now, it makes me think that all this stuff is they've probably known about for like ages, like decades and decades. They've kind of known all this information, and then it kind of makes me think like, all right, you know how they're starting to, or you know, chat GPT became the big thing that everyone's using, and it's like, oh, you know, look at this AI, look what it can do. It's like, all right, so if the public now have access to chat GPT, I wonder what AIs are getting dabbled with kind of behind the scenes. Like I reckon they're going to be next level way. Like they have to be if like whatever we get is probably like technology that's, you know, 5,
leftover
10 leftover technology, old technology.
Yeah.
So I wonder what's like going on now behind closed doors.
Yeah, you know, internet came on 90 and 91 when they first made the internet connection, not for public and within the military, right? And they release it later for public, and only the smaller version of it. Same with Chat GPT. Because most of the work, the small work I don't want to do, I just ask Chat GPT, like, what do you think? Or write me this, write me that. And it actually sometimes gives me so much information. It's like talking to a person, right? And like you said, if we have access to that, imagine what government has access to.
Yeah.
You know? So, yeah. Fuck, that's a really weird thought to think of. You know? How advanced we are as a species, and they don't even tell us like we are this advanced. And somebody I was listening to, they were like, we are so advanced, we just go to the moon because we have our own establishment there, and from there we have really nice crafts, and then we explore the planet. We tell public on Earth that we have this really primal spaceship, and we go to the moon, and from there we get the advanced one, and then we go further. You reckon that could be the case? Like we are that advanced?
So what, they have a base on the moon?
Base on the moon, and which is more advanced. And we just go to the moon like in primal vehicles, and then we get really advanced spaceships, and then we explore more from the moon.
I don't know. I just think like the moon, it's too visible, isn't it? Because like with a good strong telescope, you can literally like see the surface of the moon in like really good detail. So I wonder if it would be too difficult to hide.
But isn't that the case that moon only has like one side looking at us?
That's a point. Does the back of the moon? I actually don't know this. Does the moon spin? Like,
because I'm thinking if it's spinning, then Earth must be spinning. I don't know. I have no idea what the reality is of the moon.
Neither.
Okay, so let's wrap it up. That's 1.5 hours, man.
That was fast.
That was really fast.
Really fast.
So this one, again, we were not on the top gear. We still had a lot of variables, and we were really conscious, especially Taylor was really conscious. Usually Taylor is not this, what is the word I'm looking for? Like captured, reserved and captured. So probably when we do the next one, you'll be more open, right? And you can explore your ideas, and you can mention your ideas and be provocative, man. Like I know you're really reserved on this one, and usually you are just bang, bang, bang. You have so many ideas coming out. But yeah, so when we do the next one, hopefully that'll be way, way better.
Good practice run.
So this is just for the practice.
Yep.
Yeah?
No, it's good.
Yeah?
It was interesting. Went really fast.
Yeah, so hopefully we'll have our own podcast, English podcast. So if I do release it, it's going to be on my Punjabi channel anyway.
Okay.
Right? But I'll show it to you first before I release it.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah?
Sounds good.
Okay then.
All right.
Okay. See ya then. Cheers.